In this video, I'm going to continue on. I have a couple of items of detailing that we did not finish in the previous video. And then we'll go through and show how to apply sections. And I do want to introduce a couple of other minor things that are a little bit different from the drawing that we have, but I think is of great importance. Now, one of the first things I want to explain is when I zoom in here, you're going to see windows A and B. These window symbols right here in the floor plan view is not what they should appear. So this actually looks more like a fixed window. If you look over here at window number C or type C, this is actually showing a sliding bypass window. And in fact, it's not shown here, but in many cases on architectural floor plan drawings, it'll actually have an arrow showing which panel and which direction that panel would slide. Now, based on an orientation, the panel on the inside of the house would always be the one that would slide, and so it would assume that it would go that direction. But these two windows right here actually are sliding windows too. They have a center fixed pane, and then they have two sliders on each side. Now, down here, close to the status bar, you'll see here's our scale, and right next to that scale we have an option right here that we can define. By default it's defined as coarse. We can change that to medium or fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and select on medium here, and let's just watch what happens. You'll notice that the wall outlines themselves become a thicker line, and then what you're going to notice is that our windows actually are showing the two sides that actually are sliding inward from that fixed. Now I want to keep this under the course, and I'll explain why in just a little bit. But what I've done is I've gone back and have fixed these two windows so under the course view that we're seeing here, because that's how I ultimately want to print this. I have made those changes and I've uploaded those files either to D2L or to Bluebeam Studio. So I'm going to come over here. You don't see it on my screen, but I'm going to go ahead and double click, and I want to load my slider triple pane, and it's going to be the same file name. And that becomes important because once this opens up and I load and close, it'll ask me if I want to overwrite the current window. So now that I've got that point here, I'm going to go ahead and hit load and close. And as it loads that into the project, because I already have a window by that name, it's going to ask me essentially, do I want to save this copy, overwrite the existing copy? So there's the dialog box right here. Family already exists. I want to go ahead and overwrite the existing version. And as soon as I do that, the windows with my changes will come in, and under this course view, we will now see that the windows are now in that sliding mode. So I realize on the actual drawings that we're working off of, it's showing different than that, but I would like you guys to go ahead and swap those windows out so it looks similar to this. Okay, really quickly, there are a few other things as far as detailing that I did not go over last time. So let me go ahead and bring my drawing back over here if I'm able to drag it. There we go. So what I want to be looking at is I want to put these symbolic lines that's in the shower area. I missed those last times. I'm still going to omit my movable island at this point. Well, I'm going to come back and actually do this barn door, which I didn't do. I noticed that we didn't put the default ceiling, or excuse me, the vaulted ceiling in. We didn't show our overhead parameters of where our garage door was at. I don't think we put a garage label in that room as well. So we're going to just play around with this for a minute and put the symbolic lines back in. So I'm going to start over here on the shower. So I'm going to go to annotate, go back to detail line, and then I'm going to select I make sure I'm on thin line is what I want. And then I'm going to go back and I also want to select the rectangle, and I'm going to drag a rectangle here and then drop that in there. So I'm going to click on this line right here. You'll notice that these do have some dimensions, and sometimes you can make this work or not. For some reason, this is not snapping to the wall, so that one will not work. I might have to come back and put a temporary dimension in there. Let me click on this line here, and you'll see that line is relative to the center of this wall. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that dot, and you're going to see that that came in line with the existing wall. I'm going to activate that dimension right there, and I'm going to put in 3 inches, and you're going to see that that moved that into place. Now, up to this point, I've been showing you how to use temporary dimensions to make that work. That seems to be the most straightforward starting out. However, it is a little bit more time consuming. So if you can click on here and get those dimensions, again, that's to the center of the wall. So I'm going to snap back to the edge where I want. And then from those 2 reference points, I can put in the dimension that I would choose. Do that on this one again. I'm able to snap to the right line. Go ahead and put 3 inches. Whoops. Let me go ahead and undo that. I'm not quite sure what happened there. So let me snap to that line. Okay. And once again, if I snap to here, you'll see, oh, that's interesting. This time it actually did snap there. So let me just, I'm curious here for a second. Okay, so when I'm zoomed out, it's snapping all the way to there. If I zoom in to where those symbolic lines on the other side do not appear, it looks like I snapped there. So I actually was not aware of that until just now. So now I'm going to go ahead and snap that line into place, click there, and that's going to prevent me from having to put a bunch of temporary dimensions in. Okay, go back to my detail line. I should still be on the thin. I'm going to take the single line, and I'm just going to draw 2 quick diagonal lines. And now we've got the symbolic lines of the shower complete. Okay, we missed the label right here for our vaulted ceiling, so I'm going to come over to the tray ceiling, copy, and I'm going to just hover over this hidden line, and then holding my shift key down, I should be able to move that down, and you can see I've now snapped to the vaulted line. I'm going to click that into place. That'll put my text box right where I want it to be. And I'm going to now just get rid of tray and type in vaulted. I need to make sure my spelling is correct. V-A-U-L-T-E-D. And then you can see that that text box was too small, so I'm going to go ahead and select it and drag it a little bit wider. All right, so that takes care of the vaulted ceiling. Let's just go ahead and put a door in here. Now this door is supposed to measure about 9 feet wide, and I'm just going to, again, make this very symbolic. I'm going to start with a rectangle, my rectangle mode. And I'm just going to drag in a rectangle right here. Let's just do this. I want to, looks like it's down here on the bottom side. See if I can do this without putting in any dimension there. So I'm going to move that line there. And from that point right there, I want this to be 1 inch. That's going to look like it's tangent to the door. I'm actually okay with that. I'm going to go ahead and select this line, this door. I'm going to make that 1.7, I'm going to go 0 space 1.75 inches. That'll just say, I'm just going to say that's what the door is as far as the width. And then what else do I want to do here? I'm just going to measure this really quick because if I remember correctly, this door should be 9 feet wide. I'm not going to go, it should be listed on the door schedule. In fact, let's do this the right way. So we're going to come back over here and I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find where my door schedule is. That was door number 113. Okay, so we're actually 8 feet on that door is what that door schedule shows. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to put in this temporary dimension and I'm going to say, okay, this is an 8-foot door. I'm actually a little bit wider than that. I don't think this is going to work out. I think the door schedule is incorrect because if I measure that opening, I'm barely under 8 feet, which you need to have a little bit of overlap on each of those walls. So I'm actually going to make that a 9-foot wall, and I'm going to put in a couple of reference lines here. I'm going to change these back to the green lines. Again, I like to use green as construction lines. Construction lines will never be left there indefinitely. So I drew that line from edge of opening to edge of opening, and what that does for me is it allows me to go to the midpoint, and I'm going to bring a perpendicular line out. Then I'm going to go back and select my dimension and come up to hit my edit witness line, and now I'm going to come back and select that midpoint. All right, so look at that. I actually am centered, believe it or not. Go back and add one more dimension here now, because what I do know, well, I'm not going to need to. What I do know is I want a 9-foot door, and 9 feet, half of 9 feet is 4 foot 6 inches. So I'm going to go select this end line right there. That's the line I'm going to need to move. So I'm going to type in 4 foot 6 inches. I'm going to come do the same thing over here. I'm going to type in 4 foot 6 inches. And now I know that wall will equal 9 feet. To go back and get rid of my dimension line and those construction lines. One last thing I'm going to do, and we did this on the last video, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to highlight this tag, do a copy, and then I'm going to hold my shift key down so I can get this in the general location. I'm going to drop that tag. Okay, that's interesting. It says it cannot find a host. So, trying to figure out a better way to do that. I'm not going to be able to drop a tag in there at this point. Maybe what I would do is come back and maybe I could just create a symbol that shows that door. Let's just be a little bit, how would I say it? I'll make this a little bit rudimentary. I'm going to go ahead and copy this text box down. I'm just going to type in 113. And for now, I'm just going to leave it like that. We won't have the little oval shape around it, but we'll take it to that point anyway. Okay, so I'm going to come back up here. I need to open my drawing back up and go back to my floor plan and see what else we need to finish detailing here. So let's come out here to the garage really quick. So I'm going to copy the kitchen label, bring that out here into the garage, paste it, and then I'm just going to change that text box to read garage. And the other thing we missed in the garage before is we have these symbolic lines that basically show when the overhead door is in the upward position, how that will appear. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back to my detail line. I'm going to select overhead line in this case. And then I'm going to come right here to the opening. And from that point, since this is an 8-foot door, I'm just going to type in 8 feet, make a right angle. I'm going to bring that down until it snaps parallel to the other edge of the opening at 9 feet. And then I'm going to drop that in there. So that will now represent the garage door. Now, another thing I just noticed here on our drawing, going back to dimensions, we didn't have a dimension here, but you'll notice that there is a dimension on the inside here. And that dimension, the way it is written, I'm going to actually move it so it's on the outside. No, I'm going to leave it where it is. The reason it was placed there is because these other string of dimensions come to the inside of the wall, which if we were to remove the garage and make this building just a simple square, would be the outside of the exterior wall. I don't want to get a bunch of clutter here by overlapping our dimensions with those witness lines. And so I think that was the logic there. But you'll notice that what it's showing there is that the center of this door is equal distance. So I'm going to go back here, go to annotate. I'm going to snap here. I'm going to come to the center of my door. I'm going to snap to the outside of the wall here. And I'm just going to go ahead, drop that. And before I do anything else, you'll see the little equal. I'm going to go ahead and click on, I guess I'm going to have to hit escape once. Okay. I guess I'm going to have to exit out and then go back and select that, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on that equal. And what you'll see right there, instead of giving me an actual dimension, it'll just tell me that that is equal. And then if I wanted to, I can actually drag that line out so it's showing a little bit of the center of the door. So the reason you would use an equal like this as a dimension is just in the case, like in your field conditions or whatnot, if there was something a little bit, some variance. What we want is no matter what this width is, we want the center of this door equal between the outside face of stud to outside face of stud. Okay, so we'll put that in there. Trying to take a look at what else we're missing here that we haven't detailed. Let's take a minute here and let's build our spiral staircase. So on the spiral staircase, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my annotate detailed line, and I'm going to change this first to my regular line width. I'm going to use this as construction lines, and I'm going to create from the inside, this would basically be the inside wall to the inside corner of the wall. I'm going to have to zoom in there so it snaps. If for some reason it wanted to snap elsewhere. Now I'm going to hit escape once to disconnect that line. I'm going to come up and do the same thing here, come from that point down to the intersecting point here. Okay, what that does is that gives me the absolute center of the space. If this valance, which is up above, if that were to extend all the way to the floor, we would have this room that was basically a box, and this represents the exact center of that area. So on the spiral staircase, we have this center column basically that comes up. It's a post type thing that our stair treads will basically attach to. So that has a diameter of 8 inches. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come up here. I've got to be in annotate. I need to go to detailed line. And there we go. And so once I'm back in this mode, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select circle. I'm going to go to the midpoint. It'll snap with the triangle. And it's an 8-inch diameter, which means I'm going to put in a 4-inch radius and hit enter. And I already made one mistake. I want this to be a thin line, not a construction line. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to select that line. come up here and I'm going to modify that to thin line. And then I'm going to come up here again, go to detail line, and I need to make sure we just edited that line, so we still need to change the line type when we go back to enter more. So I'm going to put thin line, come back, select my circle, and then this time I'm going to create a radius of 2.5 or 2 foot 6 inches. And that radius will now be the outside edge right there. Okay, so once we have that, what we're going to do next is we're going to divide this all up, and in the end, this is going to look a little bit different. We're going to show a few more treads on here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, make sure I'm my thin line. I'm going to do a straight line, and I'm going to come right here to the top. You'll see the little triangle. That should mean I'm exactly going to bisect it. Here I am passing through the midpoint, so that's a way to check. Take a line all the way through that point, and then I'm going to do the same this direction. Okay, once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw some lines here that go directly. In fact, I'm going to undo that last one. I'll show you why here in 1 second. Let's just go ahead and I'm going to actually start from the outside of that inner circle and snap that to that point. And let's do that in the 4 different directions here. Let my computer catch up here really quick. Sometimes you got to zoom in there a little bit to get it to snap where you really want it to snap. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and snap to that point. Okay, so I do want to continue in with a few more lines, and this is going to get a little bit tricky here, but what I want is I want to have an angle here of 22.5 degrees because I'm bisecting this angle, and I'm having a hard time getting it there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply snap it close there for a moment. I'm going to come back and do the same thing. Excuse me, I need to come clear to the center. I'm going to snap to that point, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Now I'm going to take a quick look. I don't want to get too, yeah, we're going to go ahead and take one to this point. I think that'll be all we need at the moment. So I'm going to go back to my annotate. We can use an angular dimension. And so what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to simply start here. So let me go back here. So I go to annotate, select angular. I'm going to select my first line and then go to the angled line. Try that one last time. There you go. You'll see we'll have an angle there. So I'm going to pull that out, and then I'm going to come to these two right there. I only need to do every other one because we already set all of the others to 45. So we know exactly as we put one in, if we are in between 245 lines, then what ends up happening is we know the other one will be correct in that regard. So, okay, I think that's all that I need. We'll get this figured out as we go along. So this line right here, I'm going to go ahead, select, activate the dimension, 22.5 degrees. And then I know that I'm going to go ahead and delete that dimension. I know that this one now is 22.5 because I already set that to 45 and we simply bisected it. So I'm going to go ahead, change that to 22.5. I'm going to come over here to this dimension, 22.5. And I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning this stuff up. We'll come to this point. That needs to be 22.5. And finally, this one will be 22.5. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now that that's done. I'm going to actually extend this line back. Okay, that works out really well now because I just want to make sure where we want to start. I'm going to go ahead and also extend this line up. Okay, so we kind of got this little spoke looking thing. We do need to clean a bunch of stuff up. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my two original construction lines right here. And now what I'm going to do is, because we didn't extend that spoke up, we didn't need to, I'm going to go ahead and select there and just bring that back. Make sure you try to keep snapped into that location. Looks like we've got a couple of here also that are also broken, so I can go ahead and take those back. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up to modify. I'm going to go to the split, and if I can make this happen, you can see my straight line is highlighted. That's going to split right there where those places intersect. I'm going to split the two lines there, here, and right there. So now you'll notice when I select that line and that line, those have all gone away. Let's do that same thing here if we can. We're going to split the line at this point and at that point, again, this point, and make sure that when you're doing this that you see the line that you want to split. It needs to have that kind of blue background highlighting it. Do that one last time, and then we can go ahead and we can just eliminate those items out of the circle. Now, just taking a quick look at what I have here, got a little overzealous. We don't need that. We don't need that line, and we don't need that line. And that's going to be pretty similar to what we have. Like I said before, we're going to have a few more, looks like treads going up. Again, this is all symbolic. This spiral staircase would be fabricated to meet the code. Okay, we're going to go ahead. We need to put a little up symbol with the arrow. So let me show you how I want to do that. I'm just going to start with highlighting the entry and then copying that and bring that over. I'm holding the shift key down again to unlock that snap. And then you see once the text box is highlighted, I'm going to move this a little bit. You can see we have this little circular type thing. That's the rotate option when the text box is activated. So I'm going to click and hold down on the left mouse button, and I'm just going to rotate that up. It will snap to about, when you get to 90 degrees, it will snap. Of course, I don't really want that at 90 degrees. As we come in here, we're going to play with this a little bit. But what we want is to have that some type of angle that's going to be somewhat similar to where the arc's perpendicular to where that is located. So we're gonna work on that. First off, let's go ahead. Let's just relabel that to up. And once that's relabeled to up, let's go ahead and shorten our text box. And then what that's going to do is give us the ability to get this in here and somewhat rotated to what we think looks good. I want to place this about the center. So the last thing we're going to do here, there's actually two things we need to do here still. I want to create a leader that comes around, and instead of using the straight one that I showed you before, I'm going to use this curved one that's going to come off of the left side. So you'll see that that pulls in there. I'm going to need to go back here to my text, and I want to select the 30 or the 3/32 arrow. If you remember in the last video, I had you guys create that one. And then I'm going to take that arrow all the way around until it hits there. You'll notice that I snapped to the other side. That's okay. We can take the center point, drag it around this other direction, and we just want to get it somewhere to where it's kind of centered. And then we're going to go ahead and just leave it something like that. Play around with it a little bit. If it doesn't look perfect, you can just play around with it a little bit. Now, the last thing that we need to do is, if we look right here, this original circle does not show. It's been basically divided, split, and then erased. So I'm going to go back to my split element. Make sure that the circle is what is highlighted, so you can put a split there. Then you come over here, make sure the circle is again at that line split right there. I'm going to hit escape twice so I can select that line and hit delete. So there's a way, again, using symbolic methods of how to create the spiral staircase, and that will take care of that part of detailing. I just wanted to go through our plan here and make sure that there wasn't any other things that I had missed. And then, of course, if I have missed some things, feel free to get in there and make those changes or add it to those areas. Oh, that was the other one I was looking for. We never did put the gas fireplace label. So I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to select this tray ceiling, copy that text box, going to move it over here, get it somewhat centered into that fireplace box, and then I'm just going to highlight there and label that as fireplace. Select that text box again. I'm not centered. I'm going to hit centered at that point and just play around with it until it looks good. And I think I'm just going to leave it as that is there. Okay. I want to show how to do sections, but before that, I do want to show one other thing which is not part of our drawing. So in this particular case, you get a lot of stuff going on here, and you kind of lose the actual walls in all the detailing. So one of the things that I was taught when I started board drafting a lot of years ago is there was a term, I think it's a French term, called poché. And what that basically meant is we came in here between the walls and we made some type of either a bunch of straight lines, or we did some type of wood grain look. I even saw where people would just basically shade them in completely, but it would make the lines or the walls stand out. So I don't show that on the drawing here, but I would like you guys to attempt this on your project. So let me show you how we can do that really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and select this exterior wall. And then I'm going to go to my edit type. And in the edit type, you'll see right here it says graphics. So this says coarse scale fill pattern. So when we do this, it'll only happen if we're in that coarse scale that I showed you at the beginning of this video. Now you can see right now that our fill color is set to black. I'm going to go ahead and select there because there's a whole array of colors that we can use here. I'm going to come over here on the bottom. There's this kind of a mid shade of gray. I'm going to go ahead and select that as the color. And then coarse fill pattern, there's nothing selected there. I'm going to go back down here after I open that dialog box and select my solid fill. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And what you'll notice is all of your walls that are defined as the exterior now are being shaded at a gray color. So go through and do that on the other walls. I'm going to go to my interior wall here, edit type. Once again, change my color to the gray, and then my fill pattern. I want that a solid fill. So we'll have to do this on each wall type that we've created. So you can see once I've done the exterior and the interior, we've got a lot of our walls taken care of. I think we only have 3 wall types left. So this should be our garage common wall. Again, edit type, change that to gray, and then I want a solid fill pattern. Go ahead and say okay. That should take care of the common walls. We've got this 1 2x6 garage wall that we'll need to do. Say okay, and then finally I'm going to select the 2x4 garage wall, and I'm going too far. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and then again, one last time, say okay. Okay, so now that we've done that, we back off and we can say, okay, now those walls are standing back out at us. And so that's actually a really nice and common way to do things. Now, this would have been better off when we created the first wall type to make those changes. And then as we duplicated those wall types, everything here would have duplicated and wouldn't have been such a long process, even though that actually worked out fairly quick and simple. Okay, one last thing that we want to do is we want to add some building sections, detail sections, and some interior section callouts or elevation callouts. So if you're looking at the plan here, you can see we have these building sections. A building section, by definition, shows a vertical cutting plane that goes all the way through the building. You can see we have 3 of those right here. And then a detail section is defined as a section that just goes through basically just a portion like a wall. And then our interior elevation callouts is what we're seeing right here. Now, as we go through this, we will not, we'll actually place this, but we will not end up having numbers or sheet numbers in any of these, and that's just simply because we have not gone to that level of creating this drawing. So we'll be able to put these in here, but we'll just see basically slashes or blanks where those things occur. So let me go ahead and come back over here. The first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that our section is going to appear on our view. And so what we need to do is in our properties window, we need to come to this visibility graphics override. Come in here and I'm going to go ahead and click and open up our dialog box here. Now we can turn things on and off. In fact, I'm going to go back to the detailing of the foundation plan and provide another video that will show us how to get rid of some of the modeling components, because we added the kitchen. If you go back to the foundation plan, it's very likely you're going to see some of the cabinetry and appliances show up, and so we'll have to actually turn those off. And this is where that'll happen. But before we get to there, we're going to go from the model categories. We want to select the annotations tab, and we're going to scroll down. This is all alphabetical order. I want to come here to where it says sections and make sure that that is check marked. Once you know that is checked mark, go ahead and say okay, and we will know that it will show up. In fact, I've got one here. It's a stray from when I did this in the foundation plan. I'm going to go ahead and just delete that for now, because I'm going to go back and do videos and redetail all that on the foundation plan. So now I'll just get rid of that. So to place our building sections, what I want to do, in fact, I'm going to bring our plan back over here. We're going to start off and we're going to put 1, 2, 3 in there. So I'll toggle back and forth so we get kind of an idea of where we're going to be. This first one is going to come right through just on the edge of that window. So to do a section, we're going to come up to our View tab, and we will have this tool here. It's called Section. And in the Properties box, I'm going to have several sections here. It looks like I've got a wall section and a building section. I'm going to go ahead and select on Building section. And then I'm going to come down here about this location. I'm going to click once, and then I'm going to drag this symbol up to about that point. Okay, so that's how you add a section. I'm going to go ahead and bring our plan back up. What you'll know is it looks a little bit different. First off, our triangles are facing the other direction, and then the symbol appears the same on each side, where over here we just have that tail. So first off, to change the tail, once our symbol is highlighted, you'll see this little symbol up here. It's called the cycle section tail. You're going to click on that once, it'll disappear. Click on that twice, and you'll see that it will appear the same way as the other side. The other thing is this is going the wrong direction. Down here on the bottom side, you'll see these two arrows. You can simply just click on that, and that will flip. So what that means is it's as if you're looking at this symbol, it's as if you're sitting in this location looking towards the great room fireplace area. When I moved earlier, that great room symbol, I meant to copy it. I did not. So I'm going to take just a really quick second here so I make sure I get that back in here. If you made the same mistake I did, just go ahead really quickly, fix that. Okay, so you'll notice here back on our section that we have the blanks here. Those will only fill in when we actually put a view onto a sheet. But until that point, it's just going to show as a blank. Now, when you create a section view like this, if you come down here into our project browser, you'll see that we now actually have sections. This is called section 1. If I double click on this, after this saves, because it saved once, because I double clicked on it, it will actually take me to the view that this section's creating. So this is a vertical cutting plane. And as soon as this view is created, what we'll be looking at is the wall through the door to whatever distance has been defined. So let the computer catch up here really quickly. And once that is done, okay, let me go ahead and double click here again, and it should take me to that view. So this is basically the view that it's showing. I'm going to come back here to my main level floor plan. I'm going to click on this symbol, and what you'll notice is you'll have these little blue hidden lines. This is actually showing the view depth. And so as we were looking at that, it's not showing anything past that plane. So I'm going to grab the little handlebars here, and I'm going to drag this just to the other side of the wall. And now when I come back to this section view that I was created, what you'll notice is now my door's appearing, my fireplace is now appearing, and my mantle is appearing. Okay, now if we were to include this as part of the drawing, we'd need to come back in here and we'd need to clean that up quite a bit. But we're not going to worry about that for now. Okay, so I'm actually going to go back here and I'm going to change this view. I'm actually going to take it back to this point, because the reality is if I were to be doing this in a real set of drawings, the placement of this building section, I'm really interested more on what's happening to this wall. And again, if we take a look at what we have here, we've got another building section that's coming through here that would actually in fact show us the fireplace and that part of the kitchen. So there's no reason to do a view depth that exceeds the depth of another vertical cutting plane. So I want to look at that one last time. So this is just barely on the inside of the garage door. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and go back to my section. I'm going to start again from this side. I'm pretty sure I'll have to flip when I'm done, but I'm going to bring it up to about that location. I'm going to change my style, and then I'm going to come down here and flip that section. Now, I like to line things up, so I didn't get that snapped. So I'm going to highlight the section view again, and then from the little dot here, I can click and I can move that. Now you can see once I get to a certain point, it's getting a little finicky here, but let me drop it there and try to go back up. You ultimately can get this to the point where it'll snap right there and be in line with the other detail symbol. So that's what I want in that case. And then I believe we have one other section view to do, and that's coming through, looks like just a little bit to that side of this side of the window and a little bit to that dimension. So I'm not sure if my dimension here is exactly like how it should be. Oh, I don't have a dimension there. So I'm going to need to come back. Let's go ahead and put this detail section in because, again, I have missed a couple of dimensions that I want to get back in here and place. So I'm going to get this all taken care of first. Let me see if I can drag that to the point where I want it to be. That looks good. I want to drag this one down and line it up with the other symbols. Come on, get there. Oops. Okay, so that's pretty close to where I want it to be. And if I really quickly, I want to come back here. This is how it works for me all the time as I develop these drawings. There's just little nuances, little on the fly go back and put in. There's a 4-foot dimension right there that I do not have. So I'm going to come back here and just really quickly go from that point to, that's interesting. That point, whoops. Let me take another quick look here to make sure my dimensions. So that's actually interesting because what that means for me is my wall right here is not in the correct position. I'm going to do one last quick check here to make sure that I'm snapping to the right place. That should have been to the inside of the wall. So I'm 2 1/4 inches off. I'm going to go ahead and just use my move tool and move that back the 2.25 inches. So we know that's correct. And now that's really interesting because now after having created this, these symbolic lines, that actually technically would position this a little bit off. But you know what? Again, this is all symbolic. And to be honest, the way that looks, I'm actually content with how that looks. I'm going to move that dimension line a little bit just so we're not over the water heater right there. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to add a wall section in this area, and then we'll do our 2 interior elevations. So I'm going to come back up here to view, and I'm going to go ahead and select section. Now I can leave this as a building section. I can select this as a wall section. When I put this in as a wall section, you'll notice that the symbol is actually a little bit different. Now that's not always a bad thing. It does help you sometimes determine what's a detail section versus a wall section. But just to be consistent with what we have in this plan, I've used the same detail as the building section, which we can do. I'm going to go ahead and select what I've put in here, and I'm going to change that back to building section so I can substitute it. And then what I've done over here where the tail is, I've just clicked once to get rid of that, and then I've just simply moved that somewhat into the orientation where that needs to be. It looks like that maybe I had this up around that direction at that point. Okay, so we got two more things to do in this video, and that is going to be to place these interior elevation callouts. So we're going to start with the one here in the great room, and in this case we are going to we're going to stay in view, and then you can see right here we have elevation. I'm going to drop down that little drop down. We have a framing elevation, and we have just a regular elevation. We're going to click on that regular elevation, and as you look at here, you can see we actually have the option of either one. So we want the interior elevation right there, and I'm going to come to this point, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop that symbol in there. I'm going to take another really quick look here. We're relatively close to where I want that to be. So once we get to that point, I want to highlight this building elevation or this interior elevation. And you'll notice when we put this in, it's just got the one little basically arrow right there. So when we select this, you'll notice that we have these little boxes that we can check mark, which is what we want to do in this case. Did I do that correctly? No, it actually appears that I need to go back and select this whole symbol once again. I'm going to uncheck mark that elevation right there. It's because we don't want that one there. The other thing we'll notice from this original plan is it looks a little bit different because these are not filled in. What I'm going to have you guys do with me really quickly, go ahead and just select the symbol once again, and then go to Edit Type in the Properties window. And on the elevation tag, click in there. It says half circle, and we're going to change this. I'm going to come up here, and I want just an elevation mark body circle with detail number. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Say OK once again. And now, as we click off of that, if you notice here, that's the symbol we have here. The only real difference is we don't have a sheet number and we don't have a view number. And again, those would automatically fill in if we were to, in fact, actually create those views. I'm going to drag some of this stuff just so we don't get too cluttered or cover stuff up. All right, so we're going to add one more, and that's going to be in the bedroom number 1. We can see that we're actually just looking at the back wall and the front wall. So we're going to go ahead, come here to our elevation. Now, I should be able to click there, drop that, and since we already changed those parameters here, that one's going to come in with those same modifications we made. I'm going to check mark that box, and now we will have that elevation that at some point, again, if we were to continue on, would show. Let me just go really quickly here also, because this, just like the building elevation, this does actually in fact create our interior elevation. So if I double click right there, that's going to take me to my new view. And if you look at that, you can see from a couple of videos ago, here's our kitchen with the wine rack and with our range hood cover, so on and so forth. And we can see that would be the interior elevation. Okay, so at this point, this drawing is finished. Again, if I've missed some of the detailings here and there, please feel free to modify those and fix those. In the next video, I will show you how to create the title blocks and how to put the view on the title blocks and ultimately print. Be aware, I am going to follow up and do another video or two that will show how to detail the foundation plan. So before you go on to the next video, that will show you how to create the title block and place the view in the title block, and then how to print. We'll want to finish detailing that foundation plan. So look forward to that, and I will send the email with links to those items.